And Stephen talks about that in the business news. Stephen's been looking at the reaction on the company's share price, haven't you, Stephen? What actually happened then during those hearings?
Well, Mark Zuckerberg managed not only to emerge largely unscathed from his grilling by those US senators, but he also added around $20 billion to the value of Facebook on the back of his comments. So let's take a look at what happened to Facebook's share price during the trading day yesterday. A clear spike around the time that Mark Zuckerberg started speaking to those senators, just coming up to 3 o'clock, as you can see. And the gains remained pretty steady as he continued his testimony. The shares finishing the day up 4.5% in trading. Good news for Facebook overall. Good news for Mark Zuckerberg himself as well. His shares worth $3 billion more than they were when he started speaking. Now, of course, those rises come after a torrid month for the social network on the markets. Since the data scandal broke in mid-March, its shares have plunged from $185 before the scandal down to a low of $150. And at the end of yesterday, we're back up to $165. At one point, the company had lost $95 billion off its market value. Somewhat of a recovery, though, since then, partly thanks to Mark Zuckerberg. Well, one of the issues that lawmakers took up with the Facebook CEO was how the social network should be regulated. One Democratic senator telling Mark Zuckerberg bluntly that your user agreement sucks. Zuckerberg praised the recent beefing up of European privacy rules, but noted there are different sensibilities in the United States. Emerald Maxwell has the story.
Facebook's motto used to be move fast and break things. But hoping to restore confidence in the social media platform in the wake of its worst ever privacy failure, CEO Mark Zuckerberg has been forced to change his tune.
I think the real question, as the internet becomes more important in people's lives, is what is the right regulation, not whether there should be or not.
But you as a company welcome regulation?
I think if it's the right regulation, then yes.
You think the Europeans have it right?
I think that they get things right.
In May, new European rules will aim to give EU residents more control of their data. Companies won't be allowed to collect and use personal information without the person's consent and face fines of €20 million or 4% of global annual turnover, whichever is higher, for data breaches. These rules will only apply to Facebook's European users, but Zuckerberg now says the company will integrate some of them in the US too, though he has yet to be pinned down on details. So far, he said he supports the proposed Honest Ads Act, which would regulate online political advertising. But at the first of 2 congressional hearings, he refused to be drawn on other proposals being floated, such as making social media platforms liable for users' content, or a requirement for companies to secure explicit consumer permission for their data.
Officials from the European Commission have raided the London offices of the US broadcaster Fox. It's part of an EU-wide investigation into the TV rights for sports events and whether companies in the field may have broken competition rules. Inspectors are reported to have seized documents and computer records at the Fox Networks Group offices. Fox says that it's cooperating with the inquiry. There could soon be someone new in the driving seat at Volkswagen. Various reports saying the German car maker is looking to replace its current CEO, Matthias Müller, with the head of the VW brand, Herbert Diess. Müller had been installed in the job in 2015 after the emissions scandal. His contract is due to run until 2020. Let's take a look at what's happening on the markets for you today. European shares starting the day in the red, retreating a little bit from the gains that we'd seen in trading on Tuesday. Ryanair and EasyJet among the fallers that we saw on the European markets. That's, of course, after the rise in oil prices in the past 24 hours. Paris and Frankfurt, you can see there in the red. London starting in the red, just tipping into the blue a couple of minutes into trading. Over on the Asian markets, there was a mixed picture there earlier as well. Fears of trade tensions helping to returning for investors really there after the latest comments from China and the US. The Nikkei in Tokyo and the Kospi in Seoul, both in the red, but gains in Shanghai and in Hong Kong. Finally, for me, a glimpse into the potential future of virtual assistants like Amazon's Alexa. The e-commerce giant has filed a patent for what it's calling a voice sniffer algorithm. It sees Alexa listen for positive or negative terms like prefer or disliked, and then listens to what you're saying around those words so as to better gauge your interest in certain products. Now, in the patent application, Amazon says the information could be used for content providers or advertisers, but the company has pointed out it doesn't use customers' voices for targeted advertising, and the patent application doesn't necessarily reflect current services. Still a little bit worrying that Everything you say could be listened to by dear old Alexa.
I think it's terrifying. I don't want any sniffing going on in here. No sniffing at all. Thanks so much, Steve. Steve with the business.